Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, visualizing, taking action, setting goals, and yet somehow you keep ending up in the same place? What if the thing holding you back isn't your strategy, but actually your subconscious? In today's episode, I'm joined by hypnotherapist and mindset coach Paul Salter, and we're diving into why success can actually feel unsafe to your nervous system, and why your subconscious would rather choose a familiar struggle than an unfamiliar success. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money Podcast, the show where we tackle the taboo topics of money and manifestation. I'm your host, Jenny Schultz, former 9-to-5 grinder who ditched the status quo and went all in on creating a life I love. Yes, I use manifestation. Yes, I took action. And yes, I created a 7-figure net worth before turning 40. Every week, I'll bring you inspiring stories with money mavens and manifestation masters. From learning how to make more, save more, and grow your wealth to unlocking the power of manifesting your dream life. I am so excited to play in this space with you. Let's jump into creating a life you love. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money Podcast, Paul.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation.
I am really excited to chat with you on here, especially because you're a hypnotherapist, you're a mindset and performance coach, and I feel like in the world of manifestation, we like to go into overthinking mode. I think in not even just a manifestation, just us as human beings. And I think getting into digging and talking about the subconscious mind and stuff we can do around that is going to be a very intriguing topic. So I would love for you to start with sharing with the listeners just who you are and kind of what your story is.
Happily. So my name is Paul Salter. I'm a high-performance hypnotherapist and mindset coach, and I primarily work with CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs, ambitious professionals who feel stuck and continue to get in their own way, holding themselves back from the success and dreams they desire. And specifically, I use hypnosis to help them unlearn the destructive beliefs, feelings, thoughts, and behaviors that lead to them kind of getting stuck in that 2 steps forward, 3 steps back pattern. And crazy enough, it's crazy for me at least, this is year 17 of coaching for me. I've been fortunate enough to have coached thousands of individuals during that time frame. And my journey to get to where I am today is quite unique. The early chapters of my coaching career were as a sports dietitian, working at the collegiate, professional, and Olympic level, helping these world-class athletes maximize performance, body composition, recovery. But what's so interesting was these are individuals being paid millions of dollars to take care of their body, to rest, sleep, and eat well. But just like you and I, Jenny, who fortunately or unfortunately are not high-level professional athletes, they too struggled to do what they knew they should to be doing. They too had these limiting beliefs, these fears, these sabotaging behaviors that kept them stuck. So I really latched on to that observation. And I spent the next 10 years as I pivoted away from the sports area, helping primarily women stuck in the yo-yo dieting cycle, losing and regaining the same 20 to 40 pounds over and over. And rather than just being the dietitian who provided meal plans and nutrition education, I did next to none of that. I focused on helping them unlearn and lose the limiting beliefs and the emotional baggage that led to them remaining stuck in that pattern. And absolutely love that chapter of my life, but the universe had other plans. And after 10 years in that area, I took a hard pivot and played poker professionally for a couple of years. And about 6 months into that journey, I felt I was out working everybody. I was out studying. I had the coaches. I was doing all the things I was supposed to have tons of money. But what was actually happening was it felt like I was lighting money on fire and losing money very quickly. So something needed to change, and I wasn't quite ready to give up yet. So I asked for help. I hired my own mindset and performance coach. She happened to be a hypnotherapist. This was my first introduction to hypnosis. And in a very short amount of time, I suddenly found myself earning more money, playing for more money than I ever thought possible. Yet the impact she had on me as an individual, confronting my own limiting beliefs, fears, my relationship with money was so indescribable that it felt like that was the next evolution of my coaching. So I walked away from poker. I phased out all remaining nutrition clients, got my credentials as a hypnotherapist, and I haven't looked back since.
Fascinating. It's neat that you got into the world of hypnotherapy and kind of the world of everything that you're going through in your own journey, that it was presented to you. So for you,
Can you just give the listeners just a definition of what hypnotherapy is or kind of what it does?
Of course. But we have to first begin with what hypnotherapy is not, because
Ah,
most people think I am going to dangle a pocket watch in front of you, Jenny, and get you to cluck like a chicken or put you to sleep. And they've probably seen that, on a stage show, a comedy show, a cruise ship. And technically, that is all hypnosis. It's just unlike anything I do. So, hypnosis is really just another word to characterize the type of brainwave we're producing at any given moment. So, right now, you and I, we're having this engaged conversation, likely primarily producing beta brainwaves. After our long work days, maybe we take a shower real quick to unwind, we start to relax, we go from producing beta to alpha brainwaves. When we fall asleep at night, we produce delta brainwaves. Well, there's a sweet spot in the middle between slight relaxation and deep sleep where we produce what are known as theta brainwaves. That is the hypnotic state. It's the same state you're in the moment you transition from sleeping to waking in the morning, when you're caught up in a good book, your favorite TV show, or you're deeply lost in that flow state working on a creative project you love. I share that just to normalize how safe and natural hypnosis is. Everybody's been in hypnosis multiple times today already. Yet where the real, magic, if you will, and I use air quotes if you're listening, is when we get into hypnosis intentionally, we create two incredible opportunities. Number one, every high performer has this harsh inner critic, judgmental voice that says, Paul, you suck. Paul, you can't do that. Paul, that'll never work. Well, we quiet all of that nonsense and negativity in hypnosis. Second, and perhaps the juiciest part, if you will, is we connect with your subconscious mind. And your subconscious, as many, if not all of your listeners know, influences 95% of what you and I do every single day. It's home to our memories, emotions, beliefs, and habits. So I'll use hypnosis to get to the crux, the core of when you learned that limiting belief, that fear, that sabotaging behavior, so we can do the work to unlearn it, take that energy to build a new belief, a new set of complementary behaviors that aligns with the person you desire to become.
wow. And how long do you find that takes a person? Like if you're doing a session with somebody,
Mhm.
it probably varies too, right? Like if you're trying to take somebody back to where that limiting belief started, that to
Mhm.
me sounds like it takes time, but maybe it doesn't. How long does it usually take?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head where everybody is so unique. It can be one session, it can be but I structure my calls to be between 60 and 75 minutes. The actual hypnosis portion is 25 to 28 minutes, if you will. The more therapeutic technical term is a regression. We're doing a fast timeline style regression, if you will. We can get there immediately, depending on how intense, pressing, or limiting that fear, belief, or pain is. Sometimes it might take a few sessions because that's so enmeshed in that person's identity. The subconscious has no shortage of defenses and resistances to make it challenging, because once that block or that belief is unlearned, let go of, or removed, a new identity must emerge. And our subconscious wants to protect our identity because it's safe, familiar, and comfortable.
Okay, so is our identity is embedded in our subconscious, or our subconscious is holding on to our conscious version of what our identity is.
So when I talk about identity, the way I like to break it down is your identity encapsulates, first and foremost, like your beliefs, what you believe about yourself, the world, others, money in particular as well. And through your beliefs, you have how you speak to yourself, how you speak about yourself, others, the world, money. So there's this cascading domino effect. It goes beliefs, word choice, self-talk, thoughts into your actual behaviors, which become habits. All of this influences your results, your reality, and your identity. Your subconscious, if you think of an iceberg, when we look at an iceberg in the Arctic, we see that tip of the iceberg. Or researchers estimate that's only about 10% of the structure. So that 10% we see above water can be likened to our conscious mind, which is where we are all deliberately aware. We can perceive our thoughts, our words, and interact with our environment. The remaining 90%, what we cannot see of that iceberg, represents our subconscious mind. That is where everything we've experienced up until the present day is essentially filed, is essentially stored. It's where all of those moments of hardship, challenge, or learning took place, where new beliefs and protective behaviors were formed. And anytime we are triggered, it's as if a little messenger goes into the library of our subconscious mind to retrieve the pattern or program to handle and react to that situation.
Okay, I like that visual. That is easy to see.
Mhm.
So we're operating from what we can see is that top of the iceberg that is above the water, but
Mhm.
really below the surface, that wider as it fans out to the bottom of the triangle, that is what is dictating how we are behaving in our day-to-day life. So by going
Go.
through hypnosis, working with your clients, you are going below the water, if you will, and you are helping them unpack those little, or rewrite, I guess. You said you're going to help them figure out what it is and then figure out.
Yeah.
Can you give an example of somebody's like limiting belief they have and what you would change it to?
Absolutely. So I'll use a recent client of mine. So client of mine is an entrepreneur in the fitness space, incredibly successful business. And for a while, she was struggling mightily with intense scarcity, performance anxiety, and just unnecessary, all fear is irrational, but in particular for her, this fear that she was going to go broke tomorrow when literally her bank account and evidence suggested otherwise. And as we begin to unpack her story, she grew up raised by a single mom. Dad was not in the picture. Single mom, worked multiple jobs, almost like she was always working to give her daughter the opportunity to have all of these amazing, incredible opportunities to grow, to live a wonderful life. Well, simultaneously, mom is working all the time. There's barely ever extra money. There's always just enough. And through her childhood, she begins to absorb mom's attitude and relationship toward money and mom's emotion towards money. And it sounds cliche, but for her, it was literally like rich people are jerks. Rich people are so lucky. Why do they get to have money and I don't? Here I am as a single mother working 3 jobs. Life is unfair. There's never enough. And there's a concept that really describes this called your emotional home. And it's basically you unconsciously pick up on the emotions that are most present in your environment during your upbringing, and you unconsciously try to get your fix of them, even in adult life, because they are safe, familiar, and comfortable. And that's all your subconscious wants. So for my client, 2 things were at play here. Number one, mom thinks rich people are jerks. How dare I become rich? How dare I make a lot of money? Because second, most of us still forget we're a very tribal, community centric species. We're wired to belong. That's how our species has survived for as long as they have. So for her, if she were to keep making more and more money, there was a real threat of fracturing that relationship with her mother. But how dare she? The sacrifices her mother made to give her these chances. So what was happening is for a while, she was playing really small and getting in her own way when it came to growing her business, not delegating, not scaling effectively. And we were able to uncover this lack of safety making more money and help her literally understand that these beliefs and emotions around money, wealth, and abundance, they weren't hers. They were her mom's. And we can get into some really unique symbolism and metaphors in that deep hypnotic state to almost literally get her to feel as if she's giving back these beliefs, these feelings, emotions, behaviors. And then we get the opportunity to write and create her own.
I'm still hung up on we could be holding on to limiting beliefs or things like that because it makes us feel safe or comfortable because it's going back to like that little kid that's still in us, right? This
Yeah.
is what we knew growing up. So that feels comfortable to us, which as an adult, like to think about that, that sounds so messed up because to
Yeah.
create that feeling of safety and familiarity in your body, you're putting yourself through destruction in a sense.
Yeah, like as crazy as it sounds, you're absolutely right. Your subconscious would rather have to deal with uncomfortable challenge because it's familiar versus unfamiliar success. Even though you say you want success, your nervous system sees it as a real threat. Your subconscious says, absolutely not. It's so incongruent with the identity we've created over the years. I'll find every sneaky, unconscious sabotaging behavior I can to bring you back to this place of comfortability and predictability.
Gosh, we're weird. Us human beings
Yeah.
are weird. When you look back to the wiring behind us, and I know you're talking about CEOs and high performers and stuff, but this is in all of us. This is
Yeah.
right down to our essence of being a human being. We're wired this way. So it's fascinating that you can go in and essentially rewire how you are as an adult now, even if you've been operating this way for decades now. You can go back in and rewire it. And like I said to you before the show, I love a good pivot. But to me, by doing hypnotherapy, you're allowing yourself a mental pivot. You're no longer
Mm,
operating from that same blueprint, I guess, if you will, then you are
Yeah.
coming out of sessions and having a new kind of blueprint and way to move forward in life.
Well said. And I love that you really latched onto the word wiring because you're spot on. We are wired to survive, not to thrive. But every single one of us listening and engaging in this conversation wants to thrive. So it is literally an uphill battle fighting these invisible currents and resistance to stand out from the average, from the tribe, to thrive. And it takes work. It's uncomfortable. It's challenging. It involves retraining your nervous system that success, wealth, abundance is safe and letting go of the emotions and beliefs that are holding you back.
Yeah. So alongside hypnotherapy, I just want to know if you have a tool or a tip or somebody that's listening could say, I realize I might have some of this stuff going on. I don't have access to a hypnotherapist, which,
Yeah.
by the way, is a lie. We all have access to people like you online. But right now, in this moment, if you were to say, go try to do this to see if you can either dig into a limiting belief or empower yourself to a new belief.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of a daily stillness and silence practice. And admittedly, a little biased towards journaling. But what I'm getting at is there are no shortage of things and internet and technology competing for our attention every second of every day. It is incredibly challenging to sit and be still in silence for 10 minutes. And I mean, no email, no phone, no music, just with yourself and your thoughts. There's a quote that I love that to this day, I still can't remember who to attribute it to, but the quote is the voice of your subconscious mind, your intuition, your all knowing self is silence. So by cultivating a practice, 5 or 10 minutes a day of daily silence and solitude, it's a chance to come home and connect with yourself, to go inward and really shed some clarity and light on the truths that you already know. Because candidly, if you're listening right now and you're resonating with this conversation and you know you have some scarcity or limiting beliefs around money or next level abundance, you likely have at least an inkling of why that is or where it comes from. But that inkling is often crowded out and clouded out by the noise of everyday life because you're not taking or making the time to sit with yourself. So in addition to that, we latch on curiosity. Non-judgmental curiosity is how we're going to reflect on what comes to mind during those moments of silence. And we're going to begin through that lens of non-judgmental curiosity to start to uncover either where and how we're getting in our own way, where our beliefs around money came from. Are they even ours? Spoiler, likely not. And from there, that awareness can begin to lead us down the right path of connecting with the right people or taking the right actions.
Fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. And this is totally a random question that came up. Have you ever had somebody fall asleep while you're doing the hypnosis process with them?
One time, and
Okay.
it was the funniest thing. So all my sessions are virtual. I've done thousands and thousands, all virtual, because if you were to come into my random office, you don't like the lighting consciously or unconsciously, or it smells bad, you're literally, your guard is up. Physically, you're protecting yourself. You're much less likely to want to open up and let your guard down metaphorically as well. So in a virtual space, when I work with my coach, I lay down in my own bed. I put my eye mask on. You're in your comfortable environment. But back to your question, I had one client who did fall asleep and I noticed it. I've got several tools to kind of bring you back up if I need be. For her, clearly she just needed to sleep right then. And I continued with some different strategies during that time. And it was the funniest thing when she woke up. That was the best session of my life, yada, yada, yada. I didn't even tell her she fell asleep. And then like 2 months later, because that was our last session, we reconnected and I told her, and she's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Oh, that's funny. And when a person is asleep, are you still able to talk to their subconscious?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Subconscious is always listening.
Yeah. So
That's why
you're
too.
still doing the work then, even though she was laying there having deep rest.
Absolutely. And people listening, probably, I would imagine some of your audience has tried some type of tape or YouTube video before sleep. And, a money manifestation video on YouTube or an abundance soundtrack or meditation. It's okay if you fall asleep during those. You're still getting benefit while listening. Don't think you failed or messed up if you happen to fall asleep.
I love that permission slip. That is good to know. And I would love for you to share what you think your biggest piece of advice is for someone to go out and create a life they love.
It comes back to that daily silence practice. The one addition I would make is in that time, you need to ask yourself one question relentlessly and repeatedly. What do I want? it's so easy to make a huge list of all the things you don't want in life. But too often, because of society or our upbringing, we have been conditioned to not share what we want. Maybe it wasn't safe to speak up. It wasn't safe to share an opinion when we were younger. You have got to ask yourself every day what you want. And by doing that, it does get easier, I promise. But you're literally capitalizing scientifically on your reticular activating system, more focus and intention on what it is you want. So you start to see more and more opportunities, but it also creates that intentionality and that excitement that drives the action necessary to create that dream life.
Yeah, that's my favorite question. What do I want? And I think I've seen it because I do it with some of my clients just when they're at those really stuck points. And it can be really, really uncomfortable to ask somebody who's never asked themselves that and is so just conditioned by what society is putting onto them. The expectation, oh, this is how we're all trained. This is how you go to school, you get your recess break, you get your lunch break, you go out, you get a job, you get a coffee break, you get a lunch break. Like we are trained a programming that we don't even realize in life that sometimes, not sometimes, all the time we're allowed to
Yeah.
sit back. And I love how you said, ask yourself that daily. What do I want?
Yeah.
So
The answer
powerful.
might change day to day, but the clarity, the patterns emerge.
Yeah, absolutely. And to use that as a compass is a game changer. So I would love for you to share with the listeners where they can reach out, connect with you, all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. Well, if you enjoyed this conversation, I have a podcast of my own called the Unstuck High Performer Podcast, available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And then social media, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok at the Paul Salter. I'm active on all three of those platforms as well.
Perfect. I will link that all in the show notes for the listeners for easy access. And thank you so much for joining me on the show today and having this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. What a wonderful treat.
Before you go, I know you've got some big dreams and desires of your own calling to you. I'd love for you to come hang out with me inside Manifestation Playground on School. It's free to join, and you'll get instant access to the Manifestation Vault and an amazing community of fellow manifestors. Come in, drop me a hello, share a win, or just quietly binge the tools, your pace, your vibe. Head to manifestationplayground.ca, and I'll see you in there.